Have you ever had to come up with a secret signal or like a code word or phrase with a friend when you're in a really awkward conversation and you need rescuing? Well, I do, because when I go to a party and people ask me, what do you do? I tell them I'm a therapist. And I secretly hope they think I mean physical, because one of two things happens. I either get the complete shutdown because they think I want to know their deep, dark secrets, or they tell me everything. We have a little mini therapy session. When that happens, my friend Megan and I have come up with this signal where she sees me just do this big stretch, and she comes to my rescue. And that's the funny part about being a therapist, but the not so funny part is the day I became a client. It's 2014 and I'm sitting in the therapist's office, not as the therapist, but as the client. And he hands me this sheet of paper. My heart sank because I recognized it instantly. It's a handout I'd given to my clients countless times before. And the top of it reads, "The Power and Control Wheel, Cycle of Abuse." And I'm having this surreal moment thinking to myself, how could I be here? How could I, of all people, not see this? And what I want to talk with you about today is the reality that there is an invisible force that shapes the way we think, react, and whether we struggle or thrive. It's the same force that keeps us in unfulfilling jobs, the same unhealthy relationships, and the same self-destructive habits, no matter how hard we try to move forward. That force is trauma. It's the one thing no one wants to talk about, but it's the very thing dictating our every action. And it shouldn't be viewed as this buzzword it's become. The word literally means wound, and we all have them. And what gets diagnosed as mental health disorders are really old wounds that never had a chance to heal properly, now buried deep in our unconscious mind. So the more we keep misunderstanding and misinterpreting this and misdiagnosing it, all we're gonna get are quick fixes or Band-Aid solutions, but never real freedom. Fortunately, there is decades of research that prove that the mind knows how to reprogram itself. But this doesn't happen randomly. There are two crucial elements in order for this to happen. And I know that because I've seen it in my clients. It's called the rewiring pathway. But not only have I seen it in my clients, I've also lived it. I was trapped in a marriage that could have destroyed me if it hadn't been for one breakthrough moment. And I want to share that with you and how you can activate your own rewiring pathway. But in order to do that, I have to clear up 3 tragic misunderstandings about trauma that are robbing all of us of our success, our health, and our happiness. First tragic misunderstanding is believing that trauma is just the big stuff. It's not just the big stuff. We are led to believe that trauma is only wars and accidents and abuse. But it's also any moment that made you question your worth, your safety, or your ability to trust. And it's not just the bad things we go through. It's also the good things you needed that you never got. And these wounds are sneaky because they come all dressed up as normal childhood stuff. So in 3rd grade, I was this tall, lanky kid. I had big hair out to here. I was misprescribed these big red glasses, needed braces, and I was picking up on the fact that I was getting left out a lot at school. So one day I go up to this girl who I thought was my friend, and I asked her, "How come you hang out with those girls more than me?" She looks me dead in the eye, and without missing a beat, she said, "'Cause you're not pretty enough." Wow. Okay, so that may seem small and insignificant, but that planted a seed of self-doubt that would echo for years. It wasn't what she said to me, it's how those words made me turn against myself. And that seed of self-doubt grew into overachieving and not having boundaries and shrinking myself, basically becoming this expert people pleaser, all so that I could matter and fit in. But that desperation led me into a marriage that wasn't just unhealthy, it could have cost me my life. What is your seed of self-doubt? Maybe you find that you second guess yourself often despite your accomplishments. Maybe you say yes to things when you really want to say no, like telling people you'll help them move, but you don't own a truck. Maybe you've become hyper-independent, distant, or aggressive because you don't want people to see you as weak. I really want you to think for a second. What's the earliest age you ever remember actually feeling that way? Because these patterns are not new and they're not random. They're old wounds playing an invisible script. Which leads me to the second tragic misunderstanding about trauma. It's believing that it's what happens to you. It is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. Think of it as like a hacker installing a virus in your operating system. It wasn't that she said I wasn't pretty enough. The wound came from me believing her, and that belief was forever connected to my nervous system's response. So Bessel van der Kolk's neuroimaging studies show this, that trauma memories imprint in the subcortical brain, which is all the involuntary stuff that goes on in our mind behind the scenes, and attaches to the nervous system, which is why he says the body keeps the score. So when something happens to you, there's a physiological change that happens inside of you. This is why your chest tightens when you don't get that text message reply. You just see the little dots. It's your body remembering every time you felt ignored or abandoned. It's why you flip out at the dirty dishes in the sink. You're not mad at the dishes. Your body is remembering every time you felt unseen or disrespected. It's why I could know the theory, read the books, be helping other people heal, and be stuck in my own cycle. And if you want to know if you have some unhealed wounds, they're going to show up in the quiet ways we all cope. Like staying so busy and not slowing down so you're not left alone with your thoughts. Numbing out on food and alcohol so you don't feel. Or maybe keeping this giant wall up and people at arm's length. Saying, I'm good, I'm fine. But you just don't want them to see that you're struggling. And these cycles and patterns repeat over and over because they're attached to a false belief you have about you. You don't realize you're doing it. It's subconscious. It's a feeling of not being good enough, a feeling of I don't have value, I'm a burden, I'm a failure. And you know logically it's not true. You would never tell someone else that. But it sure does feel true for you. Which leads me to the third tragic misunderstanding about trauma. It's believing you can think your way out of it. You can't. I've tried. If you could have thought your way out of your problems, you would have by now. But this is not an intellectual issue. Other neuroscientists like Joseph Ledoux showed that fear memory bypass the thinking part of the brain and connect to the amygdala, which is our body's alarm system. So you can know better, but if something touches on that subconscious wound, your body's going to have a reaction. And I see this with the leaders and executives that I work with all the time. There's this unspoken rule that there's no room for personal problems in business. And I get it. I was doing it to myself and didn't even realize it. But the reality is, you can't check your baggage at the door. We can't outrun what we're still carrying. And eventually, if it hasn't already, it's going to bleed into everything. So you can have the title, the salary, the corner office, and still snap in a meeting, shut down in conflict, or overwork yourself to death. You know better, but knowing isn't the problem. Your nervous system's running the show. So we can all look successful on the outside, but be barely holding it all in on the inside. And we're really just waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's why I found myself in the therapist office. I couldn't save myself. That invisible force was so strong. So what was my breakthrough moment? Come back with me, guys, to 2014. My then husband and I had inherited a house, there was a problem. It was purple. And not just a little purple. I mean, the outside was purple, the walls and the inside were painted purple, there was purple wallpaper. It was the purple house. And I called up my friend one day and I asked her, hey, will you come help me paint the basement? I wanted to do something to make him happy in hopes it would change his mood, in hopes that something would shift. So she comes over and she knew what was going on in the relationship. Before we started painting, she brought out these Sharpies and said, hey, let's write some truths, some simple messages, some affirmations all over these walls. Let's do that first. Loved the idea. So I grabbed the Sharpie and I wrote things that I wanted him to believe, like you're loved, you're worthy, you're enough. And we just kept writing for at least an hour or so. And then we took that blue paint, painted the basement until you could no longer see the words. About a month later, I go down into the basement. It's dark, windowless, oppressive, a physical representation of what I was living in. And he starts to berate me again. And it's another horrific confrontation, another dark, ugly moment. And I feel myself shrinking into myself like I always do, just paralyzed in fear. And then I see it. I literally saw those words come up from under the paint as if they were dancing off the walls. And in that moment, I had the realization those words weren't meant for him. They were meant for me. And in that moment, I realized why I stayed. I needed to matter. I needed to be enough. That 10-year-old little girl was still trying to prove herself. But I saw I had a choice. Stay and stay silent at a high cost to myself, or stand up for myself and possibly risk losing the marriage or something bad happening. And I chose to matter. And when you choose to matter, that means you have to act like you matter. And that was the last time I ever tolerated that behavior again. And that moment in the basement was not about my decision. It was about the shift and how I saw myself. And neuroscience showed this, that when you change the story you believe about you change your brain. And that was the beginning of the rewiring pathway. And learning this is going to create the difference between those of us who stay stuck in the same negative cycles for a lifetime and those who finally become free. So here are the two elements: awareness and action. Awareness, we have to bring what's subconscious conscious. See your patterns, know your lies, name your wounds. We can't ignore the past. Second is action. We can't wait to feel differently to start to act differently. You're not going to feel ready. It's okay. And it might feel impossible, and that's okay too. But we don't feel our way into change. We behave our way into change. This makes me think of a client of mine, super successful musician, very talented, all the awards, all the fame, and no one would know that behind the stage, she's having panic attacks. Or when she goes home at night, she questions if life is worth living. And in our work together, it became very clear. Growing up, she had to make straight A's. She had to perform well. She had to do all the things or she didn't feel loved. Because growing up, love was very conditional. So no wonder being up on stage and having all the fame and success didn't make her feel good about herself, because it was never enough. So with this awareness, we had to combat this fear with simple steps, like saying no without feeling guilty, saying thank you when you get a compliment instead of brushing it off, and learning how to feel again instead of shoving it down. And little by little, her body caught up to her brain, and what she knew to be true started to feel true, that she was enough. Every new action rewrites a line of code. Run it often enough, and you're going to overwrite that old script. Because if the brain can wire itself for survival, it can also wire itself for freedom. And we all carry lies we didn't agree to. A simple lie like a girl telling me I'm not pretty enough can turn into some life-altering decisions. Lies like I'm a burden, I'm a failure, I'll never be successful, I'll never find love. These lies don't just keep us small, they keep us stuck. And at some point, it is no longer a limiting belief. It's become a limiting decision. And you have a responsibility to yourself for yourself. That even if you weren't the one who caused the wound, you are the only one who can change it. So stop handing your wounds over to your future and activate your own rewiring pathway. Because when you do, you open the doors to love that doesn't make you question your worth, success that doesn't cost you your soul, and the freedom to fully be yourself without apology. So, have the hard conversations. Take the risk on your own behalf. And when those lies creep up and don't shut up, just remember, you know what to do. Because healing doesn't happen in one big breakthrough moment. It happens in thousands of small, brave decisions. And maybe the words I saw come through the pain are the very words you need to hear today. You are loved, you are worthy, and you are enough. Some of you have been living in a dark basement built by trauma. It's time to repaint it. Thank you.